Survivors from Wednesday's boat tragedy in Greece are transferred to a migrant center. 9 men have been charged as suspected people traffickers.
The US says despite Moscow's propaganda, Ukraine has a lot of firepower left to conduct a counter-offensive against Russia.
After an unimaginably harrowing journey to reach land, survivors arrive at a migrant facility in Malakaza, Greece, after Wednesday's devastating boat disaster. The vessel went down off the coast of Pylos. Survivors suggest there could have been as many as 750 people on board. For now, there are 95 migrants at this reception and identification centre. It can host a maximum of 1,500 people. This as 9 Egyptian men were charged as suspected people traffickers in front of the public prosecutor on Thursday night. They stand accused of orchestrating the illegal entry of these migrants. Prosecutors claim they are responsible for the shipwreck and endangering lives. The UN says the tragedy highlights the need for EU states to better manage migration channels.
What happened on Wednesday underscores the need to investigate people smugglers and human traffickers and ensure they are brought to justice.
The search operation continued overnight, but no more survivors were found. So far, 78 people are confirmed dead, but millions more are still missing.
The Ukrainian counter-offensive is meeting strong resistance from Russian troops. Casualties are heavy and the advance is slow. Still, Kyiv claims on Thursday to have regained control of some 100 square kilometres of territories. At the end of a meeting on the contact group in support of Ukraine in Brussels, US Defence Secretary Lloyd Austin says that Ukraine still has a lot of firepower left to conduct a counter-offensive.
I think the Russians have shown us that same 5 vehicles about 1,000 times from 10 different angles. But quite frankly, the Ukrainians still have a lot of combat capability, combat power.
The chief of the UN's International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, visited the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant on Thursday to check on the potential risks caused by the destruction of the Kakhovka dam.
I would say there are 2 elements, basically. On the one hand, we can see that the situation is serious, the consequences are there, and they are real. At the same time, there are measures that are being taken to stabilize the situation.
These images show Ukrainian servicemen firing German howitzers near Bakhmut. Together with the Netherlands, Germany has sent 14 of the self-propelled howitzers to Ukraine.
The delegation of 4 African leaders and 3 senior officials who are visiting Ukraine say they want to seek an end to the war. African governments, however, are divided as to who to blame. Last year in a UN vote, only 28 out of 54 of them were prepared to condemn Russia's invasion. Their visit on Friday was interrupted by air raid sirens sounding as Russia fired more missiles at Ukraine's capital. Ukraine's foreign minister said the attack sent a message that Russia wants war, not peace. The delegation also visited Bucha, where hundreds of Ukrainians were massacred by Russian forces at the start of the war. The leaders of South Africa, Senegal and Uganda haven't condemned Russia, whilst another 3 who are senior leaders from Egypt, Zambia and Comoros have. But all 7 of them do agree that fertilizer and food supplies from Ukraine to Africa that have been affected by the war should be increased. President Vladimir Putin in St. Petersburg on Saturday.
Once a thriving farming community, now an arid wasteland. This is Haroshivka, a small Ukrainian village near the Kakhovka Dam. These farmers heavily depended on the dam to irrigate their crops before it burst on the 6th of June. Today they are coping as best they can.
Раньше мы водичку потребляли из Каховского водохранилища. Сейчас, конечно, вот это все старье достаешь как-то что-то перекачать. Ну, допустим, вот теплицы, гектар теплиц. Мне нужно сюда, ну, по-хорошему, по технологии, по соблюдению технологии, где-то 40-50 кубов в день хотя бы. Ну, сегодня я привез 5 кубов, и что я выращу?
While Vladimir struggles to supply his cucumber crop with water, other villagers have dug holes in the ground to try and conserve it.
Що ми зрозуміли, що води не буде, і треба чоловік із сином, мотоблоком вирили, скупили басейну, дорого зараз поставити ще одну басейну таку, щоб для тої ж питьової води. А вода, яка треба буде виростити, помідори, ми живемо, всі овочі на даний момент дорогі. І все вирощуємо самі, щоб хоча б поїсти. У мене діти в місті живуть, що дітям передати.
Local authorities are distributing drinking water to the villages most affected by the dam break. But as summer temperatures rise, experts fear the lack of running water could pose a serious threat to this community.
There's a troubling trend on Bulgarian beaches, as dead animals are washing up on the shores of the Black Sea. The carcasses of 3 cows have been found in different locations over the past 6 days.
Имаше умряло животно на брега, вдигнато е с усилията на общината, с отдел екология, предали сме го на екарисажа, просто няма проблем.
Authorities are unsure why this is happening, but some suspect it may be linked to the ecological fallout from Russia's war in Ukraine.
Според мен най-логичното е да идват от някой кораб от морето.
От областна дирекция по безопасност на храните уточняват, че животните нямат ушна марка, каквито има добитък отглеждан в Европейския съюз. От морска администрация пък уточняват, че към този момент няма данни за кораб, който е аварирал, превозващ контейнери с живи животни. Оттам обаче остават с повишено внимание.
This coast will soon be cleaned up, and teams from the local administration will undertake inspections.
Предстои дезинфекция на плажната ивица и да се надяваме, че това ще е последното животно, което попада на нашите брегове.
As it stands, environmental authorities have no data on pollution levels related to last week's destruction of Ukraine's Kakhovka Dam. But crews at sea say they're on the lookout for animals in the water and will keep authorities informed.
Swiss cyclist Gino Mada has died from the severe injuries he suffered in a high-speed crash whilst descending a mountain in the Tour de Suisse. In a statement, his Bahrain victorious team said the 26-year-old had died despite the best efforts of hospital staff to save him. Mada's death was announced half an hour before the start of Friday's stage. It was then cancelled, and in a tribute to him, the peloton rode for 20 kilometres along the route as fans at the roadside held out flowers.
Pope Francis was discharged from Rome's Gemelli Hospital on Friday morning. We know that he had remained in the hospital after undergoing abdominal surgery last Friday. He left in a wheelchair. He spoke with well-wishers and extended his thanks to all healthcare staff for their professionalism and efforts. Now, the Vatican confirmed that doctors reported that the pontiff's last night in hospital went well and that the clinical course continues regularly. Now, we know that all audiences have been suspended until the 18th of June, although the pontiff had resumed work from the hospital, and he's expected to resume all his activities, including travel, as soon as possible. Giorgio Orlandi for Euronews in Rome.
Cyclone Bipro Joy made landfall on Thursday evening as a vast swathe of western India and neighbouring southern Pakistan braced for flash floods, heavy rain and high winds. Bipro Joy, which means disaster in Bengali, hit the coast of the Indian state of Gujarat, accompanied by winds of 125 kilometres per hour. More than 175,000 people have been relocated from the area through which Bipro Joy is expected to pass due to the risk of flooding and the anticipated total destruction of certain buildings.
I was the first person who has access to HRT before I was 18.
Living in Europe as a transgender person can be complicated, especially when you are young. In 2022, there was one of the highest upticks in violence against Europe's LGBTQ+ community in almost a decade, especially for its transgender community. Some EU member states have passed progressive gender legislation, yet others have further restricted access to trans healthcare for minors. This Pride Month, we at Euronews spoke to some of the people trying to make gender-affirming care more accessible in the bloc. For Alex, the process was relatively rapid, but it quickly became more difficult for those after him.
They just let me do that because I was 17 and 10 months and because my parents were very supportive. I just talked to my endocrinologist like a few days ago, and she said that they were forced to shut down the system because there wasn't enough people who would like to work for that.
In Ireland, waiting lists can be up to 7 years long.
I have heard that some young people and their parents, out of sheer desperation, are trying to access healthcare abroad and access medication abroad and online, but without any medical supervision here in Ireland, which is something that's very dangerous.
In Spain, GPs will generally refer young people to a clinic that will help them access the care they want, according to its largest LGBTQ+ org. But it all depends on the region.
No es lo mismo ahora mismo ser trans o LGTBI en Canarias que en Castilla y León. Tienen menos derechos en Castilla y León. Y va a depender de la voluntad de los médicos de que te atiendan, pero no está garantizado por ley.
For some, it's not just about access to care, but also about being accepted.
For me, I think when my family started to accepting it and they call me the right pronouns and they call me by my name, I think it does like half or more of the job.